Chiara, you can bring everybody in. Good afternoon, and welcome to this last session of the Aspect Climate User Forum dedicated to climate forecast of any kind. For those who have just joined us for this session, my name is Jaro Miziak, and I'm with Euro-Mediterranean Center on Climate Change, and I'm most happy to moderate this last session. What we have done over the past 2 days, 2 days ago, we started with the community of interest. That was an easy entry into the area of climate predictions. And we explained what they are, how to use them, what are the benefits from the application and so on. Yesterday, we had another session dedicated to community of practice. And that was the opportunity to speak a little bit more in depth about the technical aspect, what we are doing in the Aspect project that is developing the seamless climate prediction system, and how to assess the benefits, and especially what the on the Earth application might look like. And today we will continue with the marketplace. It's a sort of event, community of practice, but still matchmaking activities, bringing together those that are providing climate services with those that are seeking to apply, develop, or create environment that is conducive for application of climate services. So the structure of today's session will be: first, we will introduce to you where you can find the data that we are producing in the Aspect project. So you will learn what kind of data is already there and how to use it. Then we will follow up with a panel of climate service providers, and they will provide a short overview about what they do, what their services are about, and what is their potential for being extended, or to what extent they already use the climate forecast. And then we have a second panel representing the users of climate services. And for that, we will have a combination of panelists from mission adaptation regions that have received cascading grants from mission adaptation to improve the climate risk assessment. And those are particularly from Slovakia and from the region Banska Bystrica. But we also have the developer side from mission adaptation, those that are developing the toolbox, and that's Climax toolbox with very interesting type of tools, and the Climax community of practice. So this session will be packed with absolutely interesting information. So I think without any further ado, I would invite Haris Carvelis from ECMWF. He's a data engineer and methodologist who is working with data archives and dissemination team. And he will tell us a little bit more about, how to access the data from Aspect. So Haris, can I invite you to join me and take over?
Hello, Yaro. Good afternoon. So let me share my screen.
Yeah, we can see it perfectly.
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon. Thank you very much, Yaro, for the invitation and the opportunity to talk about Aspect data. As the previous day, we saw that in Aspect we produce a number of data. So I think now it's the perfect opportunity to showcase how someone can find information about our data. So the data that we create in Aspect, we make an effort to make them fair. And with fair, we mean to be findable, accessible, or interoperable and reusable. So this means that the data are in a kind of so self-documented with the provision of the metadata and following some standards, common standards in the climate community. But on top, and this is mainly for internal to the project, and I will show you later what we foreseen as more generic. We have our documentation where we try to describe better the data that we have there from the models, from the experiment that we run. And of course, we try to give some guidelines how someone can find the data, how can access the data, download, and of course, how to use. Today, we have only 5 minutes, so we will focus mainly how to search and download the data. So in order to search for the data that we are using in Aspect, we have foreseen a dedicated space in our web page where we describe all the data that we are going or we have produced or we are going to use. And then someone can click on this specific data set and can redirect to the place where the data sit. And in Aspect, we archive our data in various infrastructure like CDS, like ECMWF Mars, and of course ESGF, because we're using different type of time scales, different type of models, and this gives us this different variant of data that we have. So regarding the CDS, the access of the data, it's very easy. Once you enter the web page, then you click on the seasonal forecast, then you redirect to the CDS, and in order to download the data from CDS is very easy because you have to do some clicks, and when you finish with your selection, the web page is creating for you the code that you have to run. Or even easier, you can click and download the data from there. In Mars is more or less the same because also you have all the keys that you need to use, and the code is already there available for the users. So I will focus a bit on how someone can access the data from ESGF because the process is not so straightforward. So when you enter on the CDS, either in the old format or in the new, let's say, layout that is introduced the last year, you need to select specific models or activities in order to find aspect data. So for this, you need to know what is the keys that you need to select. And all this information will be available soon in our web page. For example, if someone wants to download this multi-annual experiment from Aspect, needs to select the source to be the model, even if it's the model coming from BSC or from CMCC. Enter the experiment ID, which is this DCPPA hindcast, and then select the date, the start date, and the variable. And of course, when someone finishes, can click to download the script, the wget script in order to download the data. But this process is not so efficient. It's very time consuming to download big numbers of data. So there is also some free available tool that someone can use like SP-Rocket or PyESGF, and the documentation you can find here. But also we plan to have additional information on our webpage how someone can use this tool. For the SP-Rocket, the the thing is very easy. You need a configuration file just to list what you want to download, and then it's just to run this cell command, and the data will be downloaded for you. Again, it's not so flexible because you can have one configuration file, and then every time that you need to change something, you need also to update this configuration file. But of course, there is some techniques that you can use in order to make it more flexible. But the more advanced way to download data, which is very close, let's say, to what someone can find in CDS, is by using this tool PyESGF. So in this tool, you can specify again what is the data that you can download. You can also add multiple start dates or additional variables, and in one go you can download all the data as you can see here. So this is instructions that, as I said before, we plan to add in our web page. Thank you very much. And if there is any question, I'm very happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Haris. So this is very important message to everybody who is looking for the data on climate predictions. We have received this question many times. So the key message, there are different ways how to get the data. It might look a little bit technical for the time being, but you will find a step-by-step instruction how to do that. And please do use our data and other climate forecast and tell us about your impression. Thank you very much, Haris.
Thank you.
Then moving to our first panel, I would like to introduce our 3 climate service purveyors. And those are Nieves Peña from Tecnalia, who is a senior researcher on climate change adaptation, energy, climate, and urban transition. And she's working on a number of projects, including Reach Out, but also ECMWF-led project Destination Earth. Our second panelist is Sara Dal Gesso, who is a CEO of a SME in Italy, Amigo. That's the name of the SME. That is providing climate services to assess, forecast, and manage climate risk. And she's involved in designing innovative solutions using the similar data. And our third panelist from the service provider side is Harilaos Loukos, who is the CEO of the Climate Data Factory, which is a company that supports organization in integrating fit-for-purpose enhanced climate projection and forecast. So thank you very much, colleagues, for joining us. I would first kindly ask you to start with your initial statement, and that might be, what you do, what your climate services are about, and to what extent they already include climate predictions, or whether you see any potential for doing so. So perhaps may I start with Nieves. Nieves, over to you. Welcome, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much, Jaro. That question is very relevant because indeed in Tecnalia, I just focus on, I am working in Tecnalia Research Center, and indeed we have been working in the past with predictions, with CDS forecast data predictions, and we did some exercise to generate some climate services regarding that. But in the last project that we have developed a marketplace of climate services, we have focused on projections, that is long-term projections, as well as historical and up-to-date data. So not only considering long projections, but also historical and up-to-date data. It may be observation or reanalysis. But the marketplace that we have developed is not focusing on forecasting, but I consider very relevant for the decision makers. And I think that As I will explain below, before, I think that forecasting data is fundamental for indeed climate adaptation, but also risk management. So interesting question.
Thank you very much. And if I may ask a follow-up question on that, do you see a demand when you talk to the cities, public entities, or other users of climate services? Are they asking for additional data like forecast, near-term climate insight? So do you observe a demand for this type of product?
Yes, indeed. Because I think that the last two climate services and climate service tool that I have developed have been focused on long-term projection, as I said before. But when you define the risk and you define the risk levels, it's important to think on the future, but also on today and on the coming days, and also on the coming seasons and on the coming decades. So somehow, the way all these climate services, if you really want to integrate into the planning of activities, there are different, as I said before, activities that you have to manage. And long-term is fundamental, but you also have to lead with the current conditions, tomorrow conditions, and next season conditions. And this is why there is a demanding for forecasting.
Thank you very much. And yesterday we have also discussed, and the day before we have discussed that those forecasts ideally should be produced within the same modeling framework, so they are seamless. So you don't get the patchy data. So you have good skills for the next months, and then you have some skills for multi-annual predictions, but there's no transition between those. And that was really nice. I'll discuss yesterday. Thank you, Nives. Please go on.
Maybe what I see, from my experience, what I see more difficult is to explain the uncertainty in the forecasting versus the uncertainty in the long-term projections. And I think that working on how to communicate that uncertainty on the forecasting so that decision-making can better understand and consider those possibilities to take the decision is very important. So I think that uncertainty on the forecasting is one of the key things to address from the research community at this stage.
Thank you very much. We will get back to that topic in a few minutes after we have completed the first round. But the quality of the forecast and related to the purpose is absolutely critical. May I turn to Sarah? Sarah, thank you very much for being with us. You are working on the cutting edge and developing a number of climate forecasts, also for the insurance sectors. If I may anticipate, you are working on a cutting edge project looking into how the climate data can be used for designing better insurance. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Over to you.
Sure, thanks a lot. So I'm the CEO of Amigo, that is an SME based in Rome. It was funded more than 10 years ago by two researchers. So it has this strong rooting into research, but now we are really bringing our solution into the market. And it's very fascinating how the perception of customers is completely changing over the years. I mean, in the past, whenever you say climate change, everybody will think about mitigation. And now it's very much about risk and adaptation to climate change. So we see our solution getting more and more into the hotspot, into the side of the customers. What we provide is the seasonal forecast, long-term projections of different climate indicators. So in this respect, they can be used in the insurance sector for the parametric insurance, but they can also be used in other sectors like agri-food sector for monitoring and forecasting the yield production, like also hydropower and renewable energy generation. That's another application. Real estate, it's a really new field of application, also related to insurance. And also from the aviation sector, we're actually getting quite a lot of interest for our solutions. And I really need to thank Nivers for mentioning a lot of the things that are really dear to my heart, like the quality of the solutions, of the data, and communicating well to the customers. So really tailoring the solution to the customers. Of course, you build on this strong data set or high quality data set, high resolution. It's of high demand. We use artificial intelligence to go down to 300 meters resolution for seasonal forecast, the climate projections. But then on top of that, I think there is really the need to understand the system, because a risk is not only about climate, it's not only about climate data, but it's also about the context. So it's about exposure and vulnerability. So I think that's also where you can really have an added value beside the climate data.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sarah. May I have a very quick follow-up question? You mentioned the parametric insurance. In several areas, we have certain, difficulties to engage with the financial organization, exploring the needs for better data. So one of the super user of this project is actually the climate risk reporting. But for the insurance, what kind of feedback you get when you talk to about climate forecast to somebody from insurance sector? Are they interested, or how we should approach them in order to wake up their interest?
So it really much depends on what kind of insurance you're talking about. If you talk about, let's say, standard insurance, it's a bit complicated because the way to integrate the climate projections, seasonal forecasts into their standard pipeline is not that easy. But if you talk about other financial vehicle, I'm talking about the work we have done several years ago, and it's still in use. We work with the World Food Program and the African Risk Capacity, which is an insurance that is a part of the World Food Program. And what we did is to have like insurance for the whole continent of Africa that would give a payout when the frequency of extreme events impacting the agriculture in Africa would change. So it was actually really linked to climate change. But of course, if you consider such a long-term perspective. So if you talk about the changing frequency, is not like year by year insurance. We're talking about multi-year insurance. Then of course they were also very interested into climate projections, because you need to take that into account to evaluate the risk and evaluate whether your insurance is actually sustainable. So I think it very much depends on the financial vehicle and the way you apply your data and your solutions.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sarah. Thanks. And turning to Harry Laus. Harry Laus, your company has been at the cutting edge of providing indicators, data related to the projections and forecast for significant time. What is your take on it? What is what kind of services do you provide first, and then what kind of interest do you encounter from this user side?
Of course. Thank you, Yaro, for inviting me, and hello, everybody. Yes, so we're called the Climate Data Factory. So climate data, you get the point. Why factory? Factory is because we get our raw material from institutions that were cited here. ESGF for the projections, CDS, the Copernicus Data Store, ECMWF, with a whole range of projections and forecasts ranging from subseasonal to seasonal to projections, missing the decadal part yet, where we can discuss that. We hadn't tried to get this done, but it's difficult to have an operational product coming from those organizations around decadal. It's supposed to come soon on the CDS, so I'm really looking for it. And then from this raw material, we are here to bring added value. This added value can be increased resolution, can be faster access to the data. For example, when CMIP 6 was out, it was not yet on the CDS. We are smaller, we are faster. We could downscale products and put them on the market much faster than they were come over on the CDS. In the forecast, similar things. We're actually here to help others use the data. So we don't do retail. We are a factory and we focus on the hazard. We let the job of translating this into risk to the consultants, the engineering companies, the insurance companies that we work with. Because translating it for risk for a specific market segment requires a deep knowledge of the final stakeholder. We're talking a lot about users, and we imagine the users, going to the climate data store and pick what they want. But you just as an example from Haralambos, where it's not that easy to get the data. You need some knowledge. It's large amounts, etc. So that's what we're trying to do. Making a product after this raw material that other retailers can sell, and really adapt it and do the last mile, adapt for the clients and their stakeholders.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Harilao. So it's an interesting business model. You are a little bit upstream, right? Not dealing with the final user, but you are in the middle, somewhere between the national hydrometeorological offices and services they provide, and the final user trying to bridge that gap.
Actually, even National Weather Services are our clients because we're on different kind of projects. We have the private sector. We also have the public sector, where we work with other companies to support national weather services in developing countries with the seasonal forecast, for example, training, technology, and things like that. We also work for public sector like the European Environmental Agency. There, we didn't sell our data, but they wanted our expertise around what indicators to choose to produce for their internal tool, the European Climate Data Explorer, how to categorize all those indicators for sectors, and what could be the underlying data sets from Copernicus, since we have a very good understanding of the available data that is there, because we're also a Copernicus provider.
And thank you for mentioning that. Thank you for your work in the context of developing countries. This is absolutely appreciated and very, very relevant. Another follow-up question. Could you also elaborate a little bit about whether you encounter increasing interest in climate forecast from sub-seasonal, seasonal? So do your clients ask you specifically about climate forecast compared to the range of other climate data products that you are developing?
Actually, where we have most traction is on the climate projections, definitely. And this is completely driven by the recent regulatory requirements around the CSRD, the taxonomy. You have a whole bunch of, let's say, consulting companies, large and small, the big four for sure, that started doing climate risk analysis for the clients. And this created traction for climate projection products. When I say products, I'm not talking only about the variables, but also about the hazards themselves. So it's our clients that pushed us and say, okay, great, you did downscaling for precipitation and temperature, but what I want is wildfire hazard. I want landslides. I want permafrost thawing. I want droughts. I want floods. So pushing us to produce this information, and we do that with publicly available models, because we have a very strong belief that the methods should be transparent in order for people to really understand what's happening, not using information as a black box. And so there is no more, let's say, people that know about that than the Climate Europe Consortium that looks at standardizing and eventually certifying climate services to the benefit of the users, being the consulting companies that use the data or the final stakeholder. Because one thing you have to realize is that actually the value chain is not simple. You have a lot of intermediaries, and at the end, the client that looks at the risk doesn't really know or have a clear vision about the original data that is coming into the processing machine that gives him a number at the end. And this is a little bit touchy because it can be a problem.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I would like to take this point back to Nives. And Nives, you have been working with a number of users that you mentioned, but I know about others you are working with. So do you also see this push for not so much about elaborating the indicators or the data, but really tell me something more about the risk I'm facing? Can you share your experience from this area?
Yeah, indeed, I think that in the last years, I think that it was more focused on understanding the hazard, but I think that we have, let's say, go forward on that, and now the users understand very well the drivers behind the risk, and it's not only climatic driver. There are other drivers that are important to consider and are part of the exposure and vulnerability, not only the hazard. So I think that the end users sometimes, for example, in the last exercise that I did focus on health, the determinants on health are very well known by the health managers, by the public health directors. And those determinants are the ones that they have already gathered data to develop those determinants at the spatial units, for example, health spatial units, that they are worried about. So they want you to produce hazard and exposure to make the matching between those and build the risk at the specific resolution that they are worried about to really being able to take decisions. So I agree completely with Harry Laus on that. And the other element that I also want to point with respect to this risk assessment is very much focus on this tailored and specific tools for understand and integrate this risk assessment into planning. And I agree very much with Sarah that she was saying that to tailor the solutions, considering this end user is fundamental. It is true that we are working not as Ari Laus, we are working more with the end users. So we have to go from the data to the let's say, going from climate information to climate knowledge and bringing all the mixing of components to provide the final value to the end user. So this is a little bit how I see.
And you are doing an excellent job in this. I recall the storytelling of climate risk that you have developed for Logroño and other cities. Milan city, yesterday we have had this capacity building. I was talking to 300 city representatives explaining how to interpret the risk, and they recall your storytelling, which is compelling way of translating the data into something which is meaningful for them. Brilliant. Well done.
Yeah, because indeed, this idea of build tailor solution is just a word, but what it means tailor solution at the cycle of how we build this tailor solution for me is really something that it needs forward and backward in order to have a mutual understanding of what we want to create. And it's not something that is coming from the climate, let's say, or from the science. And it's not something that is coming from the end users, because sometimes they don't really know which is the tailored solution that I want. So this process of co-developing this tailored solution is something that is very powerful, and you build knowledge on the process, a part of the final outcome that you generate. I think that the power is on the process itself, that build also the capacity on both sides, on end users, to understand what is climate data, what is the uncertainty, what is the quality behind this, but also on the science, to understand better what the user needs.
Thank you very much, Nives. I would like to remind the audience, I mean, you can post a question to our panelists at any time, right? Use for the Q&A facility. And if you don't have time to get to your question, then we will post the answer. Sarah, now, passing to you the ball, right? So what is the best way of conveying the information from your services? The next panel in this session will be from the mission adaptation regions, and they are struggling. The regions have received funding, cascading grants, but they are struggling to find service providers like you to interact and to deliver the message. So how do you approach this? Lack of structured pathways to get in touch with those that are seeking your information, and how you are packaging your insight from climate data and services.
So one thing that we figured out is that most of the time it is easiest to include an add-on into an existing solution with, for instance, seasonal forecast, rather than building a completely new solution. So we actually partner with different companies to provide, in this way, actually users don't have like extra apps. I mean, we all have so many apps to look at, and this is increasing with time, and it's becoming really complex to manage. So yeah, I mean, that's one thing to take into account. So simplify things and adapt to what is already existing. About adapting, also adapt to how the work is carried out by the users, because sometimes we have, I mean, everybody has its own mindset, right? I mean, as a scientist, as a climate scientist, I have my own mindset. But sometimes really the perception of the information is completely different in a different sector. So really understanding how the work is carried out, what are like the standard wording and how it is used, what's the timing, everything. I mean, really adapting to the context. That's another thing that is really necessary. And then last but not least, considering really about uncertainties again, really like all the information that are needed. Sometimes the request is not really what you can provide, and what you want to provide is not really what is needed. I mean, you really need to frame the best that you have in something that becomes useful, because different information support different actions. So it's important also to link the right thing and to provide the right information for the right action. And considering uncertainties, I think it's fundamental to take into consideration that the information has a consequence. So the way your action, the consequence of the actions based on the forecast should really be taken into consideration when you talk about uncertainties. So uncertainties shouldn't be just, okay, I have this error, because it doesn't mean anything, but it should be more about how does this impact my day-to-day work and my actions and my work.
Yeah.
I like that very much. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you.
Can I take this message to you, Harilao? And Sarah was mentioning this back and forth, right? In negotiating what the data should be, what the product is, and what the service is. And I know that you are working intensively on the quality assurance as well in the context of other initiatives. And so, can you share some experience with communicating uncertainty or forecast quality, which is another but connected term?
Yes, but what I've experienced is that you need to bring together, if you want to really create a product that talks to the final stakeholder, as it was explained by Nieves and Sarah, you need a whole bunch of different people. And we believe that we cannot do that. It takes too much time. It takes a lot of effort. So that's why we have a positioning where we help others use the data that are already there and that can do this customization and do the translation and so on. Obviously, we just don't deliver the data and goodbye. We're here to help the internal team that has this, let's say, this consulting role. Even when we work with, let's say, the large companies in the energy sector, we have a couple in the energy sector. The people that we're talking to are not the operational ones. It's the ones that inside are more, let's say, oriented in the development of the tools, like an internal consulting company. And they talk to different business units. They talk to the sustainability unit. They talk to the operational unit. They talk to the strategy unit. So they know very well what their internal clients need. And we're here to work with them to define the data sets and let's say, and increase their culture around uncertainty, around climate models, around forecast. So they gain not only the data, but also the associated culture and around the data. And this, I believe, has a much more, let's say, multiplicative effect because it takes a lot of time to bring the right information the right way to users. So we modestly believe that we should contribute in diffusing the data and let others do the really hard work of product development.
This is fantastic. It's really, I mean, you position your contribution to a certain niche within the value creation
Exactly.
chain,
And that's
which is
what happened
perfectly
with
fine.
the
Yeah.
European Environmental Agency. They say,
Yeah.
okay, we have this site, it's for the regions, it's for the policymakers. They know their audience, they know, and they make the specifications. And it was for us to interact with them. Okay, this is your wish list. Well, on the CDS, you don't have the data. So we'll need to find a solution in order to be close to your wish list. Or, what are the indicators that are more adapted to the sectors and the information that you want to do? What is the reference periods? And while we do that, when they come with their specifications, they also gain knowledge and around what is available in the CDS, what uncertainty means for our forecast, for projections, and so on. So that's how we work. We work in teams with other consultants, either external for the final stakeholder or internal to the company or to the public organization.
Thank you very much, guys. I really enjoyed this discussion. Thank you for all your insightful observation and contribution. We could go on for ages, and I would still enjoy this discussion. For the audience, remember those are colleagues on the panel. Sarah is from Italy. She's based in Rome. Nieves is from Spain, the Basque Country, and Harry Laus is based in France. So if you are looking for specific services, consider a panelist or other companies that are producing similar insight, and you will find probably plenty. And they are very nice guys. So just get in touch with them. So thank you very much.
And don't hesitate, as we have data for the globe.
Yeah, exactly. And with that, we are moving to our second panel. And our second panel is going to cover more the demand side. Thank you very much, guys. So I invite Martin Tuchina. I'm probably the only person that is in this room is able to pronounce correctly the Slovak names, as I come from Slovakia originally as well. Welcome, Martin. Martin supports innovation, addressing environmental challenges through geospatial technologies and digital transformation. And then I believe we have few more representatives from Slovakia, and that's Martin Jančovič, who is also has a long experience in climate risk assessment and ecosystem services, and he's a data analyst with huge skills. And I was alerted that our third panelist, Andrea, might not join us, and I'm looking. Yeah, she's not here. Correctly, right. So we have invited also Andrea Rufusova, who is a strategic planning specialist, but she couldn't make it today. But our next panelist, Fulvio Bidao, who is a researcher from my institution, and he's managing the Climax community of practice. And the Climax is the project that is supported by the mission adaptation in order to develop the open source, open access climate tools and services for the regions and cities to improve their climate risk assessment. And last but not least, Christopher Polster is from ECMWF, and he's also from the Climax project, and is supporting the technical development of the toolbox. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you for being with us. And for next half an hour, we would like to hear your experience from the demand side or stimulating the demand side, and also bringing in perhaps additional insights. So I would perhaps start with Martin. Martin, can you tell us a little bit about how do you plan to use the cascading grant that you obtained for Banska Bystrica? And what kind of work you envisage, and what kind of climate data, including perhaps climate predictions, would you like to have from the service providers, and what can make your life easier? Over to you.
Yeah, many thanks, Jaro, and also other colleagues. It's a great pleasure and honor to be in such a company. First of all, let me also apologize for the rest of the team who had some limitations. So I'll try to do my best to cover our region. And with that, I would really appreciate if I can help a bit with these few slides I prepared for some sort of putting the picture in the context. So if I will be able.
Absolutely. Feel free to share the slides. If you need help, Chiara is helping with this as well.
I think I might.
Yeah, we see the slide, but not in presentation mode, if you would like to.
Cool.
Yes, now it's perfect. Yeah.
So really, it's a very great pleasure to be with you and to follow all the 3 days, which offered a very wide range of expertise and also sort of perspectives on the topic of climate change adaptation and the predictions in general. I'd like to split it to maybe three aspects. But first of all, let me shortly introduce you the region we are today representing here. It's a region located in the center of the Slovakia, center southern part of the country, and as it's maybe important to mention that this region has quite a wide geography from lowlands to really mountains, but also there are various challenges related with the status of the development of the region. And as you might see, the Banska Bystrica self-government region is an authority which is really coming with wide range of competencies. And there is a very strong connection to the topic of today's event. It's maybe very important to mention that this region belongs among those who joined the EU mission adaptation to climate change, and the ambition of the region in connection to the Climax project you already mentioned is to really make sure that we use this kind of support to provide some insights and really very important contributions to adaptation in context of the situation which region is facing too. And here I would like to really highlight the fact that the region is very fragmented, and also from the, let's say, capacity point of view, and there is very challenging to make sure that first of all you collect some relevant data, and then you communicate these outcomes provided by those data to the relevant target communities. And with that in mind, we were really grateful that we received the support from the Climax project as one of the set of cascading projects after the first call. And we try to use their main contributions, which I try to summarize to the framework, which is delivering some sort of methodology, and the handbook and toolbox, who helped us to focus on those crucial type of hazards, mainly floods and wildfires. And with that in mind, we tried to actually make sure that outcomes of this effort will really support application practice in the area of disaster risk management, and mainly currently in the communication with the voluntary firefighters, and to make sure that the project will help us really to deliver the valuable information related to the climate risk assessment. And here you can see some first of the really fresh outcomes we managed to achieve with the support of the Climax, for example, with the location of potential fire risks across the region. And of course, we are on the beginning of the way or the road, but it's very important that we have such a support. And at the same time, I'd like to highlight another also project, but initiative which helping and is maybe also towards more the future direction under the project PCP-WISE, where actually we do hope that we will be lucky to use this opportunity and be part of the procurement process, where the aim is to really to support development of the ICT services, which will provide the region with the technology improvements, especially for those two type of hazards like floods and fires. And it's important to make sure that this is so-called pre-commercial procurement process, where the plan is that together with the other regions across the Europe, we will collect the requirements, and we will be able to receive the products and solutions where we do hope the prediction and the forecast type of services will be included. So I would like to also take this opportunity and to share with you the information that within the really near future, I think from the beginning of April, there will be initiated this overall procedure for the procurement process. So we would be very happy to see also all the players already represented in previous panel, that they will have a look on that tender, and they will consider to provide either their direct offer, or they will create some consortiums, and they will deliver the services which regions like ours we are hoping to use for the application practice. Last slide, really going directly towards the aspect project and the event of today, is some sort of extract of the expectations which we consider as a very important, because on the end of the day, all of what we do, we are supposed to do for the real users, for the stakeholders, and we try to cluster these stakeholders to those three groups, from public administration through business and to the citizens themselves. And considering the perception you mentioned many times during those 3 days, we try to pick up the use cases where we really see in Banská Bystrica that these are the use cases requirements where we would really acknowledge also high quality forecasting and prediction services to make sure that the expectations will be fulfilled. Maybe last comment on the direction, and maybe the first presentation from today, we consider also very important those requirements related to the technology aspects like interoperability, like user experience, to make sure that those services are easy to understand, easy to deploy, easy to operate, and then there is sufficient help desk and support from the service providers. So that's in the really nutshell, and maybe I think I'm sure we will come back to those and maybe other topics in further discussion. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you so much, Martin. That was really brilliant. And I believe my colleagues from the Aspect project are really enthusiastic about your requirements. This is what we have asked for so many times. And I think Freya will be very happy to see those. Also from your side, from bottom up. So a couple of messages. Aspect is working with mission adaptation regions, and we have Emilia-Romagna super user. But we offer, to work together with also with you, with Banská Bystrica, in order to produce the data in the format that is useful for you. So please, if you are interested, we can embed you in closer interactions and working together. So you were welcome to do that. And thank you very much also for the flagging out the pre-commercial procurement, the PCP-wise. A couple of weeks ago, we have hosted the Climate Innovation Festival of Climate Europe 2, and we had colleagues representing this project. So we do believe that the public pre-commercial procurement is absolutely a wonderful thing to invest the time and resources. And with that, I hand over to Fulvia. And Fulvia, you are the person behind organizing the community of practice for Climax regions. And although the community of practice really started only last year, you might have a number of observation about what we can do in the community of practice to help regions like Banská Bystrica that Martin is representing.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jaro, and thanks for the invitation today. Hello, everyone. Yeah, so basically the Climax community of practice is a growing space for collaboration, knowledge exchange, but also capacity building and training for the end users, but also different types of knowledge beneficiaries. All those that are interested in the climate risk assessment or working in the field of climate risk assessment. We are currently gathering around 230 members that are mainly public authorities and scientific and technical experts coming from regions, from cascading funds, but also other beyond that. And we are talking about end users of tools and services that are developed within the project, but also those already existing, and that we, in the Climax, we try to mainstream further developing guidance, accessibility, and tuning to the local context. So we are trying to support these kind of practitioners with dedicated capacity building and knowledge exchange activities, trying to help them make sense and make use of Climax services in terms of those already mentioned, anticipated by Martin, but also through providing key resources, guidance, and support materials or best practices. We also share practitioner insights. Therefore, we are trying to match and adapt the value of these services with local needs. And to ensure this is tailored and meaningful for these end users. We started by mapping and capturing the current practices in Europe for climate risk assessment at local and regional level, but also trying to understand the capabilities within this community. So we surveyed our members about their interests, needs, not only in terms of how to use these tools and services, but also how this can be applied and embedded within the local context in terms of challenges, governance structures, and different kinds of contingencies. So according to these and the evolving needs, because we constantly receive a request for guidance and support on different aspects, being them social, socio-political, or technical facets of climate risk assessment, we try to continuously organize a set of sessions dedicated to a specific topic. So this range from introducing the framework and toolbox within Climax, sharing and discussing practical experience of end users that are currently using them or testing, and trying to share and discuss their lesson learned challenges within the community. We also talked about the relevance of context and vulnerabilities and the sectors involved or affected in local context in the previous panel. And in this regard, within the community of practice, for example, we organized a set of webinars dedicated on how to integrate local knowledge and community knowledge and input within the process of climate risk assessment. So making sense of the data and integrating local input in the process. But also engaging citizen stakeholders in the various steps of the adaptation cycle, with particular emphasis, of course, on the first phases, including the climate risk assessment. Moreover, most recently, actually this morning, we held a webinar on risk communication. So we talk about the complexity of risk data, climate risk knowledge, and how to transform these data and the outcomes from these tools into more actionable knowledge or more familiar and accessible to the public, and that is relevant also for decision making. So for example, we hosted this morning also researcher from Reach Out project. So Nieves was here before talking about climate stories and how to inform and raise awareness in the public. And more than that, we also talked in the previous panel about the uncertainties of scenarios. And in this regard, actually, just to anticipate something for the next community of practice event, we have other activities that are intended more to the co-development of the tools that are currently under development. So together the input and design these tools in a way that are tailored to context-specific needs and the levels of user maturity, making them more relevant and usable. So just so you know, our next event is about navigating uncertainty in future scenarios. So we will try to explore with the end user how scenarios are generated, what biases and uncertainty mean, and how to choose the most suitable models. So to support this process, the Toolbox team in Climax is developing a specific workflow to help practitioners to visualize climate scenarios and assess the regional biases. Hopefully, someone is going to put the link into the chat because I know that may be relevant to many of you. So let's say what we are doing right now, but the community is still open to further contribution and engagement because we are currently assessing the needs and capabilities within this community.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Fulvio, and thank you for doing that. I think somebody will post that. Yes, if didn't, yes, it's already posted. Thank you very much, Chiara, for posting the information. If you are interested to get in touch with Climax Community of Practice, you will find the information how to do that. And Fulvio, perhaps you might want to invite somebody from Aspect community. They are very experienced in communicating uncertainty. And perhaps one of the next COP meeting might be dedicated to climate forecast, right?
Yeah, sure. We are constantly open to
New topics,
etc. And also we are not reinventing the wheel. We are trying to create synergy to take stock of all the knowledge and tools that are developed in Europe.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And Christopher, now you are one of the main person behind the technical design of what Climax is producing, it is produced and is offering to the regions. Can you elaborate a little bit about what is their toolbox in the current form, and perhaps mention whether there is a potential to extend some of the functionality to include climate forecast?
Yes, the toolbox that we have is part of our handbook, which is an openly accessible website. And on the one hand, it contains the framework, which is essentially a set of steps to go through that provides conceptual advice on how to do a climate risk assessment. And supporting that, we have a number of workflows for different hazards that take the user through a quantitative risk assessment where we're combining climate data into a hazard indicator and then combining that with exposure and vulnerability data to arrive at an indicator of risk. The way that we've designed these is by using Jupyter notebooks and the Python programming language, the reason being that we want the flexibility that this approach offers. We realize that it's not necessarily the most accessible way to prepare these workflows, but it is the most feasible way to really allow users to start in an interactive manner, to easily get access to many of the data portals. I mean, connecting to the CDS via Python is very, very simple. But also allow users to really customize these workflows as much as they need to, because we know that the workflows that we have, they're a starting point. They were designed with pilot regions in a co-design phase, but they're still not in their final version. And we're learning extensively from the regions applying these workflows right now through the project. Taking up developments, hopefully in the coming months, to learn how they're being used, what is still missing in them, how to make them more accessible. Maybe also some things about the data sets that we have missed. So of course we've initialized these workflows exclusively with public data so that anyone can get started with them as quickly as possible. But there's always challenges there, especially when it comes to the data volumes. In certain cases, we've taken some of the climate data and sort of pre-processed it and saved it ourselves to provide this data through the project, because at some point it can get quite tricky to do a real comprehensive assessment if you then need to download gigabytes and gigabytes of data, which for some municipalities is just not necessarily feasible with the infrastructure that they have. But the important thing for us, again, is that we try to be flexible, but we're also trying to provide sort of good defaults. The workflows are intended as a starting point that regions can build on. You get an initial result, but it's really then the next steps of refining them, adding tailored data for the local context, including local knowledge to really make these results their own. Because there's always going to be some aspect for each municipality that we can't necessarily anticipate, or we just don't know about. And this is really where the end user, the regions, they need to come in with their expertise and help us realize what we're still missing.
Oh, this is wonderful, and thank you very much for the hard work. It's absolutely interesting, and the best initiative that I have seen recently. It's completely open and completely transparent and completely adaptable. So this is really very nice. Can I follow up with a question? So Harris at the beginning of this session explained how to access the climate forecast. Do you think it could be developed further into a workflow or something within the Climax, explaining how to get hold of the climate forecast and perhaps how to make some comparison with the projections for a certain period of time? Would that be within the scope of Climax project, or Aspect can do that, right? Because, you know, like my colleagues in Aspect project are keen to get these data over and used by users. What do you think?
So the first step in pretty much all of our workflows is data retrieval. So we're trying to bake that into the workflows as a first step. So this is not something where the users first have to figure out, okay, which data portal, and there's always something pre-configured. As I mentioned, something that is always a bit complicated, especially for the climate projections. We found that the data is often delivered in a format that means we have to download a lot of data that we don't actually use in the end.
Yes.
So we're downloading maybe 10 gigabytes, but at the end, we're really only interested in 100 megabytes of them.
Yes.
The thing that I've found is that this can sort of make it more difficult, or it certainly makes it more difficult, but it takes time away from looking more at uncertainties with the data. So you'd rather look at 10 or 20 different models in order to gain a sense of the uncertainty associated with the projections for the hazard. But getting actually to the data and then processing that can be just quite prohibitive if you don't have the infrastructure for that. I think this is something where in some aspects the data stores could be a bit more accommodating to the needs of the users, because and I understand that researchers, certain topics have different priorities in terms of how they access the data, but this is something that we found, at least, that can make it quite tricky for us to get to the results that we need quite quickly.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Christopher, for that. This is the invitation for my colleagues from Aspect Project to look into that, and perhaps we can discuss internally how to make the wealth of climate forecast available for the Climax community of users as they are learning to get to understand the data more and more. There might be a way how to bring that insight, those insights also into the Climax thinking. I would like to get back to Martin. So we have heard about the community of practice. We have heard about the toolbox itself, and about your initial goals and objectives. So can you reflect a little bit about what would help you to improve the climate risk assessment in the Banska Bystrica region, what the community of practice could do in order to make that better, and what the toolbox could provide you with in order to really to be the change, right? To deliver the functionality that is needed, right? The user demand that we are always asking for. So can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I think it's a very valid question, in the sense that I have to say that we are after a first phase, which is maybe something about 4 or 5 months since we started to our sort of journey with the Climax. And I would split it to 2 aspects. First one I would call this technology aspects, where we were really getting familiar with the framework developed by the Climax, with the handbook and the toolbox. And after this period, we already found out that in general, it's the biggest advantage is the flexibility. But of course, the intention was that for the first phase, there will be prepared data available across the scene, from global to the local data sets. And really, Christopher and his colleagues, they made a great job with preparing not only the, let's say, infrastructure, but also with their personal interaction and the feedback, how they provide the support to us and the other cascading projects. Of course, we see that there are how to say devils in the details where things will deserve some, let's say, improvements. And we are actually currently in the phase when we are putting all those observations to the first deliverable, which we are supposed to submit by the end of the March. And we see that Climax project wants to empathically take them on the board, considering their limitations. And I think that's the most reasonable and meaningful way how to proceed in the direction. The second group of the considerations, I would call them soft considerations, which would go mainly to the way how to interact with the community, because so far we have to admit we were preparing the things for the near future, where we are planning to really invite the key stakeholders on the regional level and to present them what is available, what we want to do for them. Of course, I have to admit that I was lucky to be in a really great team where Andrea and Martin, they are providing excellent knowledge and expertise, where Andrea is very, very good in interaction with the domain, and we do hope that with her support we will be able to also communicate this complex topic to really in an easy, understandable way. And Martin will significantly help us with the technology part. So maybe last takeaway for this part, I would really appreciate whether also with the support of your project, whether we could get better, how to say, experience and knowledge, how to make sure that the achievements made by these projects are meaningfully and understandably passed to those for whom we provide those products and solutions.
Thank you very much, Martin, and thank you, Fulvio and Christopher, for joining us, for your insightful contribution. That was really nice and really engaging. Unfortunately, we have to move on. I need to reserve some time for wrapping up. And before then, we have some question to ask to the audience. So thank you very much, guys, for being with us and sharing your thoughts. Now I would invite Chiara, can we have the slides? And the next few minutes, we would like to kindly ask you, our audience, to answer a few questions, 4 questions, very simple ones, just to get a very quick feedback from your side. So if you go to www.menti.com and put the number 33424902, then you get to the survey. But if you are connecting from a digital device, you can also scan the QR code. So I repeat, www.menti.com, and the code is 33424902. And I already see that we have 24 people connected, so perhaps we can go to the first question. Yep. And the first question is a very simple one, and this is: what type of climate prediction services would be most valuable for your purposes? Whatever sector, whatever company you represent, what is the type of climate prediction service that you would most appreciate? Is it sector-specific application or user-friendly visualization tools across the different climate variables, customized, localized predictions, or integrated multi-hazard risk assessment? I see that. So it seems that the most appreciated functionality is actually, an overview and nice user-friendly visualization about what the climate forecast tell us. We can keep it for a few more minutes. Please, colleagues, do help us answering this question. It can help us, to organize the content of this user forum, but also the Climax community of practice. Yeah, very nice. So localized, customized predictions and user-friendly visualization. Thank you very much. Let's move to the next question. And the next question is, what is your main concern when adopting the climate predictions? Is it the cost, financial economic cost and accessibility? Is it the trust and the reliability of the data? Or is it the compatibility with existing decision-making processes? Or your ability to interpret the results? Right. So take some time to get the feedback back to us. Is it the trust and reliability, or is it something else? Right now it starts differentiating. Very nice. We still have reliability as the key component, quality of the services, usability, very nice, cost and accessibility, the third place, and comparability, compatibility with existing decision-making processes. Yeah, very important as well. But I think the main concern is the trust, right? Trust in these data products. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Let's move to the next question. And we're almost done afterwards. So what in your opinion would help us to bridge the gap between those that are providing climate services in general, including those that are based on climate prediction, and those that are benefiting from those services? That means the user. So how to bridge the gap between providers and users of climate services? And this is open-ended question. Whatever you think is very important, you can education. Yeah, education in the broader sense. I think it's the capability, understanding, interpretation, and so on. Working together, right? Co-development of climate services is equally very important. It's critically important in the, in fact, it's absolutely the accessible forecast. Yeah, accessibility in any possible way, right? Understandable, easy to reach, and easy to download and translate. Yeah, thank you very much for that. We can wait a few more seconds to get perhaps some other suggestions. Bringing community together, this is very important as well. Yeah, bridging is the key aspect. I think the education and capacities are the cornerstones of those bridges. Yeah, researcher needs to revise their work schedule. They need to find time to attend user-focused events like this. Thank you very much for that. We would love to, there are plenty of committed colleagues from Aspect Project, from Climax, they are attending these events. So you'd like to see more also from the user side. Practical collection of requirements and friendly user interfaces, right? Thank you very much. This is really absolutely important. And focus on demand. Yep. Please continue answering this question while we are moving to the last one. And Chiara, we can move to the next. Yep. And this is really a very simple question. How useful did you find this session in providing insight that you can apply for your work or decision making? So has it been useful for you? To what extent it was useful, and then later on we can find out how to make it even better for you. So for the time being, just to remind you, the first session was about 4.2, 4.1, if I remember correctly. The second session was 4.0. It's a very important, indeed. I think we are. This is because of the law of low numbers. So we have lower attendance today. So that might be the reason why we get higher marks. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, statistically they are not different, but yeah, thank you very much. It's a recognition of the work of all those that have contributed to this user forum, those that organize, prepare the session, moderators, speakers, panelists, and so on. So thank you to all of them. And speaking about recognition of the credits, I would like to bring in Albert Soret, who is the coordinator of Aspect project. Albert, please join me here. Yeah, thank you very much for switching on your camera. And yeah, what is your opinion about this user forum, and what you would like to share with our forum members for the period to come? Over to you, and thank you.
Thank you, Jairo, and thank you also all the people attending these sessions. I think that it has been really interesting. Also for me, I consider that I have learned a lot, and it was a really nice opportunity to put together the scientists, also the final users, and also intermediate users discussing together. I think that yeah, it's a nice framework, taking into account the objectives of Aspect. Because so I would like to summarize more or less which is the main motivation and objectives and challenges also of Aspect. So the main motivation is that in the climate community, different people from working at different time scales with different models. So the people that is working with subseasonal is not the same that it's working with seasonal, decadal projections. And at the other side, we have the users that they have specific needs that they cover the different ranges. So the objective of Aspect is to develop methods to cover this gap and to produce seamless information. And to do so, what is important first is to advance the different time scales. So it's climate projections, it's in a mature state, for instance, and yeah, they are using many different aspects. Seasonal forecast, it's included in Copernicus, while decadal, it's more on the research side at this stage. So the objective is to understand the needs of the users and to advance the different systems and on these aspects, and putting all this together. And to do so, we selected different case studies, so specific users with specific needs. And we are working on these case studies. And in the end, the objective also to provide all this information to the community. So that's why in this context, it's important to do the research, because Aspect it's a research project, but always having this tailor research in mind. Okay, so taking into account the user needs to advance on this topic. And this is the reason of having this kind of fora. I think that it's really interesting within the strategy that we have for this user engagement. So I think that the user forum are a key aspect to especially in two different aspects. So the first one is in terms of the equation. So it was said in the survey that you were showing, but also the equation in two ways. So from the scientists to the users, but also in the other way, because this co-development it's critical for the success of in the long term of climate services. So yeah, just to summarize, I think that we in Aspect we are more or less now in the middle of the project. We had several challenges as I was saying before, but also we start to have some results. So we have some multi-decadal simulations, so simulations of 2-3 years that are initialized twice a year. We also have the extended decadal predictions, so to 20-30 years. We are developing different methods to combine all these simulations. We are also developing new methods for the downscaling because in the end, some decisions need higher resolution. So it's important to implement downscaling methods at the different time scales. And all this within the framework of this co-development with the users. So I think that this kind of exercise of the user forum, I think that are really important for the community of practice. So people that it's already aware about the climate services, about the technical developments, and they want to learn more to continue with this implementation. And just to finalize, so this is the second edition of the user forum. There will be the third. Okay, sorry. There will be another one next year, and I think that it can be a way to continue engaging with the community.
Thank you so much, Albert. Yeah, I know it's a little bit confusing because the first user forum was actually during the kickoff meeting or shortly afterwards. So thank you very much for the nice wrap up. I think you brought that to the point. So I have nothing to add apart of thanking again our audience, all those that have contributed to this forum, and please check our website. There are a number of events that you might be interested in following and opportunities to learn more about climate predictions and how useful they are for different purposes. So thank you very much and have a nice day and rest of the week. Bye bye.
Thank you.